morning. Good morning. I'm waiting for everybody to come in. And once everybody is here, we'll start. So we have to discuss Industrial Revolution. And first, we have to cover unification of Italy. We have reached module number 3, in which that we have covered Germany. I'll give you a very brief recap of that. And then we will complete module number 3 today. And then move to module number 4, which is Industrial Revolution. Within this week, we will cover a lot of things, which is after this, we will go into Eastern question. Then we will discuss World War I. And within this week itself, we will discuss Russian Revolution. And once we cover Russian Revolution, we will also discuss ideologies. And as you know, your schedule would show on Saturday also one class, because you have a doubt section which is basically there. So this Saturday we also have class as part of your module, as part of your dashboard itself. And by next week we'll be covering the whole syllabus itself. Who annulled the election in 1767? You would mean 1797. 1797, the directors did it. What is important in unification of Germany? The role of Bismarck. So, can I just give you a recap of what we've done last week, and then we can move forward? Yes? Okay, everybody's ready. So, last week, if you remember, I have the maps with me. We started at the Holy Roman Empire, and how in 1806 the Holy Roman Empire was defeated by Napoleon, and how Napoleon thereafter simplified it into the Confederation of Rhine. And this was a very important task. Why? Because by 314 units, he brought it down to 39. And with 39 units, there was a better chance of unification in that sense. However, as soon as Metternich came through, he renamed this area as the German Confederation and made it 39 plus 1 plus 1, which is adding Prussia and Austria to it. However, because Metternich was an Austrian himself, what he did was that he gave the presidency to Austria, though it lost less of its territory to the German Confederation, while the Prussians were given what we call as the vice president's position. Now, in that context, what is going to happen is there will be a rivalry between Prussia and Austria, which is now going to pave the way for German unification. Now, how did Prussia create an anti-Austrian feeling? The answer to that is Zollverein. The Zollverein made sure that the German Confederation started to feel that the Prussian doing more for them. Now, in 1848, what is going to happen is that there will be the revolution of 1848 against the conservatism of what we call as Metternich. And thereafter, what is going to happen is that in 1848 itself, there will be the Frankfurt Parliament. And the Frankfurt Parliament thereafter, having deliberated on a lot of things, will decide that we will go for a Prussia plus 39 system, which is Little Germany concept, Kleindeutsch. However, the Prussian king did a mistake, or rather did a foolishness, by not accepting the power from the people, rather than saying that I will only accept power from the kings. And therefore, what is going to happen is the revolution of 1848 is going to be a failure, because the Prussian king is going to mess it up. Now, between 1848 and 1862, the only significant thing which happens is that Prussia becomes a constitutional monarchy, and in 1862 rises a very important person on which the examiner is going to ask a question also, which is Bismarck. And Bismarck is going to be, Otto von Bismarck is going to become the prime minister in 1862, and he will give the very famous speech, which is called the speech of what we call as blood and iron, the budget speech, which is the policy of blood and iron. He said that democracy can never unite the what we call as the Germans. It is only military action. Thereafter, he will start to do what we call a diplomatic chess. The diplomatic chess was that because he needed to make sure that Austria becomes isolated, the simple straightforward point was that Prussia needed to make sure that Russia, Britain, and the French do not respond. He helped the Russians with the Polish. He made the British understand that a weak Austria is better, and he used Napoleon III as a way of arguing that because the Austrians represent the destruction of his uncle's legacy, he diplomatically isolated Austria, and in the 1866 war, which is the Austrian war, he is going to win the area out of the Austrian sector and rather may take everything except for Alsace and Lorraine. Then he has to fight a war in 1870-71, which is with France because of the Alsace and Lorraine sector. And what he will do is that by 1871, you will have a Germany as a country. Anybody has any basic issues in this? I have given you a very, very simple, straightforward story of this. I have to start Italy with you, but this is what we've done previously, and this is what we've generally understood: the 1866 war and the 1870-71 war. So now, if I have your permission, as I said, see, the Prussians plus 39 sectors. This is Alsace and Lorraine. This is what really matters. Remember that the French lost Alsace and Lorraine, because I'm going to bring this point up later when we will discuss the First World War. But before I start Italy, everybody is clear with regards to Germany, because Germany is the more complex story. Italy is a more straightforward story. It's not that problematic, except for 2-3 things which I will, as it is, teach you as we go on further. Can we start Italy today? Over the weekend, I hope that you've gone through Germany generally. But today, when I finish Italy, I finish what we call as redrawing of national boundaries, and we start Industrial Revolution. I want to start Industrial Revolution as soon as possible. After Confederation of Rhine, we have German Confederation. From German Confederation, we have the German Republic, or rather German state, which is going to be under Bismarck. Okay. How did Bismarck influence France? Because Austria, Metternich represented the destruction of his uncle's legacy. He used an emotional point to win that in that sense. Okay. Motion clear? Okay, perfect. Now let's talk about Italy. Let's talk about Italy. And the first question which automatically comes to our mind is, what are the obstacles? What are the obstacles? That why is that Italy automatically did not become a state itself? Here again, there are multiple issues. And the first one would be the political fragmentation. But there, if it was political fragmentation within the same sector, here it is even more complex, because Italy did not come under, or Italians did not come under 1, 2, or 3, but 5 different powers. See, if I start to divide Italy, you have this as the first sector, the Kingdom of Piedmont and Sardinia. This is the only area which an Italian king actually ruled. This is called the Kingdom of Piedmont and Sardinia. This is one whole sector in that sense. Thereafter, you have Venetia, which is basically ruled by the Austrians. Then certain parts of Lombardy were also with the Austrians. Then the central part of Italy was ruled by the Pope himself, which is called the papacy or the papal areas. Thereafter, the whole southern sector was under the Spanish, and some parts of Lombardy and some parts of northern Italy were under the French. So basically, if I have to divide the power, this is the only Italian. Thereafter, this is Spanish. This is Austrian. This is French. And this is Pope. So there are, okay, I'll use a different color. This is not visible. Italian state. Some parts are with the French. Some parts are with the Austrians. Some parts with the Pope. And most of southern Italy under the Spanish. So now I think you know the answer to the question I'm going to ask you. Is there any way 5 powers are going to allow the unification of Italy? No. So it was naturally very clear that 5 different powers were never going to come together. So we get the answer to the first question, that will they automatically come together? That is not the case. When you say under Napoleon, see, French, it is under the the French monarchy itself, because this is not a makeshift agreement. This is a very old concept. For example, Nice and Savoy, these sectors have always been contagious sectors. Even parts of Lombardy, half of Lombardy, some parts of Parma. See, the simple straightforward point is, when I say French, it means Bourbon dynasty. It means for perpetuity. There is no Italy. There is no Italy. Yes, Shansh, I'll tell you. I come to the point of Italian language. First, try to understand the basic point here. So the first obstacle is very simply that all of them are divided amongst 5 different powers. Now, culturally, they may be similar, but there is one more issue. I want to talk about that. Now, if I divide Italy into 2 parts, north and south, there's one more division. First is political fragmentation. The second is cultural. You see, when I divide Italy like this, can anybody tell me what is the mountain range here? What is the mountain range here? Which is the mountain range in the Italian sector? Yes, Alps. Now see, when you divide North and South Italy, the northern sector has cities such as Venice, Milan, Florence. What is common to all of these different cities in that sense? Venice, Milan, Florence? Yes, very good. Trade and fashion. The fact of the matter is that the northern sector is very developed, very modern, very cosmopolitan. Cosmopolitan means multiple cultures. Whilst the issue with the southern states, see, if I divide like this, Venetia, Lombardy, Parma, and all of these sectors are very, very wealthy, are extremely wealthy, have a lot of cultural differences with the states which come south of the Papal Church. And these southern states, they are extremely agrarian. They are agrarian, they are conservative, they are Orthodox Christians, and the biggest issue is that they are mostly illiterate. So whilst literacy here was very, very high, illiteracy was very, very high in South. So the story of Germany and Italy in a way becomes similar. that there were always natural obstacles to the unification. So when we talk about, for example, the Italian states, there is political fragmentation, that is one thing, but culturally also they would never come together. And you will see how this division is going to also stop the unification multiple times. So the first question, as always, is to write a basic introduction for this question. Again, here again, the question is going to be role of Cavour, which I will tell you. But the basic point is, why did Italy automatically not become a state? That is clear to everyone. Yes, there is political fragmentation and there is cultural issue. Yes, I want everybody's assertion here. Yes, sir. Come on. You can see that the patterns are similar. Germany also had the same issue. Italy also has the same issue. Great, perfect. Now let's talk about Italian unification. Now here I will divide it into 4 phases. Let's discuss the first phase in order to answer some of you who asked me a very simple question. Then how is that they were connected, or what was their connection? See, in the pre-French Revolution period, which is before 1789, there was a person called Alfieri. His name Benito Alfieri. This is a person. See, he started to develop the Tuscany language. Tuscany is this. He started to develop the Tuscany language as a language which is basically modern day Italian. So this person basically developed the Italian language out of the Tuscany dialect. You understand the difference between dialect and language? Do you? For anybody who's saying no, see, dialects don't have literature, and mostly they are what you call as bolchal. So in India, I'll give you a very simple example. Hindi is a language and it has its own literature, it has its own script, Devanagari. However, if you go to, for example, UP, every 10 to 15 kilometers, the language changes. And that is not that the language is changing, they are dialects. They are a mixture of the local language with Hindi. For a very long time, Braj Bhasha used to be a dialect. So dialects are basically the first stage to being a language. So Tuscany was a dialect which used to be around, and what he did was he made it into a proper language itself. So in India, there are thousands, not lakhs of dialects, but there are very, what we call as recognized by the constitution itself, 22 important languages. So language is when the dialect becomes mature and it has its own literature, script and proper grammar system. So in India, multiple languages, multiple dialects exist, but languages are limited. So a lot of times the language is distorted or there's a little bit of change and it becomes a dialect itself. So Awadhi, Braj, you have multiple. In Rajasthan, you will have north, south, east, west, different dialects itself. Within that sector itself, you will have in the same 10 to 15 kilometers, 2 different ways of saying the same word. So we all understand the fact that there are multiple local languages. The what you call local language is nothing but dialect. So very simply, as 8 schedule, 22 languages. The point is, it's not that they have no script. Kuraku, see, script is a totally different thing. I'll give you a very simple example. So because I don't want you to get up caught up here. See, this is which language? This is Hindi language. Very good. But I've written it in two scripts. Devanagari and Roman English. See, script is the way you write a language. Language is the sounds which I'm making here so that they have meaning for you, phonetical system. So script is a totally different thing. Some dialects are also written in Devanagari. So script is a totally different thing altogether. Script is the writing system. Dialect and language is the phonetical system. All languages were first dialects and then they matured into languages. Think of it like first stage of language. Are we clear with regards to that? Yes? Okay, perfect. So just to come back to the point which I was making, the fact is that Alfieri, what he did was that he used the Italian language as a way of uniting everyone. And this phase one is very, very ominously called in their own history the Risorgimento. Risorgimento means resurgence or rebirth. See, the Risorgimento started in Italy in the pre-French Revolution period, 1700s, in which Alfieri, what he did was he used the Tuscany dialect to now make it into a proper language and then connect everyone. And Risorgimento is like, if you want to have parallels to it, like the Renaissance. That very simply, he started a cultural movement which wanted to unify people and bring everyone together as a state itself. So here you can see that even before Napoleon came, there was already a urge for unification. And Alfieri, coming from North Italy, was very, very good in spreading this language, and linguistic nationalism again becomes their very simple, straightforward genesis of their nationhood, which is that it was language which was used as a glue to bring everyone together. But the problem is that the South never actually understood what Alfieri was actually saying. Because most of South Italy is illiterate, the problem with the Risorgimento was it was too urban and city-oriented movement. So when we talk about the phase one of Italian unification, the problem was that southern Italy never really responded. So the first phase is called the Risorgimento. Risorgimento is Tuscany dialect becoming Italian language, and Italian language then being used as a way of uniting people. Now the problem is that if you are using a language to unite people, the southern Italian sectors did not really respond to it generally, they didn't understand it only. So very simply, the first phase was a failure because of limited impact. You will see again the same story is going to be there, multiple phases, not going to work. So the first point is pre-French Revolution period, there was a moment in which Risorgimento was started. Alfieri wanted to bring everyone together, but it did not work out. Anybody has any issue in understanding this? That there's a person who tried to unify, was not able to do it because the southern sector did not really respond to it. You can see there are parallels. Once I'll give you the master timeline, everything is going to be perfect in your mind. Don't worry about that. Got it? Perfect. Now, in phase one itself, during the French Revolution, again, Risorgimento came back. And it tried to again unite Italy. So between 1789 and 1804, they again tried to bring everyone together. Which language they were, Pratik, the problem was South was using multiple dialects and they were not ready to adopt Tuscany dialect as their Italian language. That is the biggest issue. So if you see pre 1789 and 1789 to 1804, it is a risorgimento which tries to unite Italy, but again it is a failure. The way Risorgimento works, it cannot actually unite Italy generally. So one thing is very, very clear. There was no way the Italians at this point of time are coming together because southern Italy doesn't really understand what northern Italy was saying. Now, if I find space. Okay. Now, what we've discussed is phase 1. In phase 1, we saw part A and part B. Part A is pre 1789 and part B is 1789 to 1804. And the story is very straightforward. It is Risorgimento and it is a failure. Anybody has any issue till this point, you have to tell me right now. Then only I move forward and discuss Napoleon. Okay. Does French Revolution have any impact on unification during the two times? Yes, Velu. French Revolution created that nationalistic fervor, but that was never materialized in Italy in the way it should have. Okay. How was the language being spread? Deepika, that is the point. They were spreading it through grammar, they were spreading it through pamphlets, they were spreading it through certain types of literature. But the problem is, southern Italy are illiterate. They don't understand any language, so what will they understand as Italian? And they were not ready to understand it also. Risorgimento was started by Verito Alfieri. Very good. Is a movement started by Alfieri? Yes. Phase 1. First, phase 1A. See, I'll read it out to you also. You see, in Italy, the national movement started as a cultural awakening, which is called Risorgimento, which was the reaction against dominant French culture, which was coming from the north. At this point of time, a person called Verito or Verio Alfieri called for national unity and gave the Italians a common language in the form of the Tuscany dialect as Italian language. From the beginning, it was linguistic nationalism. However, his attempts had no success due to lack of education and absence of popular support in the southern sector itself. So this was the first attempt he tried. When just before French occupation, which I will tell you under Napoleon, the French Revolution also created a certain type of fervor in which people wanted to challenge the Pope, the Church, and wanted to talk about unification. However, be it the Enlightenment or the French Revolution, it really did not work out because again, the problem was all of them were not together. They did not know how to be together. And there is a lot of cultural differentiation between North and South. The problem is South does not understand what North is saying. And that is the biggest issue in Italy in that regard. So are we clear with regards to 1 and 1A and 1B? 1A and 1B and how Risorgimento really was a failure and it really did not do anything other than try to unite under a language which was not really possible. Yes, this is not difficult if you look at it. First is pre French Revolution, one is during French Revolution. Cultural movements, at this point of time, a person tries to push a language, South does not respond. Both cases, same. 1A, 1B, South does not respond. The first one is by Alfieri. The second one is during the French Revolution. Again, Risorgimento comes back. Risorgimento 1.0, Risorgimento 2.0 does not really work. What you need to remember for the examination, Rahul, again, is Risorgimento failed. You don't have to explain it to the examiner. Don't have to explain it to the examiner. Are we clear with regards to this? Okay. Okay. Now, Now the turning point in Italian history, much who unite. Okay, now the turning point in Italian history is the same way it happened in Germany, was under Napoleon. So whilst Napoleon was ruling between 1804 to 1815, Napoleon, whilst he dissolved the Holy Roman Empire, he was also able to enter into the Italian sector and expand into it. Now, what did Napoleon do for Germany? What did Napoleon do for Germany? No, Alok, don't have to remember the name Alfieri. I don't even want you to remember. You need to remember Risorgimento. What did Napoleon do for Germany? Very good. Simplify, which is from 314 to 39. Perfect. Everybody remembers Confederation of Rhine. Great. Good retention. No Ghazni effect till this point. Very good. So we have the vaccine against it right now, and nobody is not very non-cognizant of the fact that Holy Roman Empire was in a way dissolved by him from 314 to 39. Great. Now Napoleon does something similar to what he did in Germany. See, Napoleon didn't like this 5-power system. He did not like it. So again, what Napoleon does is consolidate. How? See, what Napoleon does is that from 5 powers, he basically divides Italy into 3 basic units. One he used to call as French occupied Italian states. Then this was basically north. Central Italy was called the Kingdom of Italy, and the southern sector, he called it the Kingdom of Naples. Naples is a place in the southern sector. Now, whilst he did this, he simplified and consolidated power. But what he really did was, all 3 were centrally ruled with representative institutions. Italy recognized as a whole country occupied by different power. Italy was named only after unification. Why will major powers allow Napoleon? Napoleon did. It was not allow. Napoleon defeated the 5 sectors and occupied them. So he is not doing it as a favor to anyone. He's occupied it. So very simply, he was able to enter this sector, defeat all the 5 powers. One of the power was French only. So he defeated 4 of the powers. 1 power out of that is France only. So he is basically expanding into this area. So very simply, he defeats the 4 other units and consolidates this area. See, the simple straightforward point is, what was lacking before this? What was lacking before this was, the Italians never knew what it felt to be under one rule. That is the problem, right? The problem was that today, if I divide India into north, south, east, west, and there are 4 powers, we don't know how it feels to be under 1 power. Now, what Napoleon has done is, as he did it in Germany, is to simplify this whole system. One is what I occupy, the other one is central Italy, the other one is southern Italy. But all of it is ruled by Napoleon itself. But what Napoleon did was that he, whilst occupying these areas, for the first time showed the Italians what it meant to be part of decision making, what it meant to be part of known as the concept of representative institutions. What is civil liberty? What is a Napoleonic code? What is the concept of law? What is the concept of equality before law? Very simply, the Italians tasted for the first time any form of democracy, any form of limited democracy also, and now were in a way united by Napoleon. Now, Napoleon is French, yes, and if I will try to push French culture on everyone, what is going to happen? If Napoleon is going to push French culture on everyone, what is going to happen? Very good. Now what happens is there's an outburst. And now the southern sector also tries to use this Italian language as a way of saying, no, we are not French. So what Napoleon has done, whilst in Germany he consolidated this sector, in Italy he has done 2 things. What Napoleon has done has 2 things. Napoleon has given them a trailer of what, rather, given them a taste of centralized power and democracy. And on the other hand, he has also united the Italians against French culture. So very simply, Napoleon again is a very important personality in this story. So when we first discussed, we discussed phase 1, 1A and 1B, and this was Risorgimento, and this was a failure because southern Italy did not respond. Thereafter, we went into phase 2, which is Napoleonic occupation. And here, there are 2 things. For the first time, under same power, French, and united against French push of culture, Italian language spreads. So very simply, they have tasted democracy and good administration. And here they are united against one enemy. Do you understand the role of Napoleon? And do you understand the pivotal role of Napoleon here? Yes? So you can see the pattern is same. Germany and Italy, both Napoleon plays a very important role. When I'll make the master timeline, 3 timelines together, you will realize it is extremely similar. See, you can be under Chituri, under good governance, but that doesn't mean that you will also accept the culture. They liked the Napoleonic codes, but they did not like to speak French. That's the basic point. So very simply, they are not liking how French culture is being pushed on them. However, they are liking how the French are ruling them. These are two totally different things in that regard. Okay, now again, let's refresh our memory. In Germany, after Napoleon will be defeated, phase 3, who comes to power, or who is the now de facto order in the whole of Europe in that sense? Very good. Now, to refresh our memory, Metternich order, Metternich changed the Confederation of Rhine to the German Confederation. Did the German states accept the Metternich change? Yes or no? Yes, they did. Yes, they did. They accepted the concept of Confederation of Rhine also, and they accepted the concept of the German Confederation. 39 plus 1 plus 1. Am I right in saying that? That the Germans accepted Metternich's understanding of this area. Yes or no? Am I right in saying it? Anybody has any issue in understanding this? Because they didn't resist the fact that they are changing from Confederation of Rhine to German Confederation. Yes. But conservatism of Metternich triggered them, sure. But for a very long, between 1815 and 1848 till 1862, they were called the German Confederation. They might be having a certain way of resisting Metternich, but they all accepted the system at least. Now, the story, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give you parallels so that you are able to create a certain master picture also. Administration is what was acceptable, not cultural change. Yes, Megha. Very good. Now, the Italians were different. See, as soon as Metternich came, what he did was he removed the Napoleon system. And what would have Metternich done? Come on, tell me. You know the answer to it. How Frankfurt Parliament is... Yes, Shoyab, it took them 30 years to respond. So Frankfurt Parliament is Revolution of 1848. This is going to be immediate. Yes, very good, Chaitanya. What would be Metternich's automatic response by removing Napoleon system? What will he do? 5 power. Very good. This is the point. He restored the 5 powers in Italy. So what he did was he gave areas to France, he gave areas to Austria, he gave areas to Piedmont and Sardinia, he gave areas to the Pope, and he gave areas to the Spanish. So very simply, Metternich's basic mandate was restore power in Europe. So he's done it. He has removed the 3 power system with centralized administration to giving everyone what is there. Whilst in Germany, he brought in his own system, German Confederation. Here he was happy to give everyone their areas back. Now, how are the Italians and Germans different? In a way that when Germany got the change from Confederation of Rhine to German Confederation, there was no immediate response from the German people. Here, the Italians say no. We don't want to go back to the old system itself. Somehow they had tasted centralized administration, and the Italians loved the taste. And now they said, no, we don't want to go back to that 5-power system. We want to be under centralized power. And now the taste, what you say, that the lion has tasted blood, that khoon chak liya. The fact is that now they had tasted democracy. So whilst in Germany there was no immediate response, in Italy there was immediate response to Metternich's conservatism. And what will happen is against this conservative restoration, there will be a reaction. And that reaction is based on two very, very important personalities. And they are very closely connected to modern India also. Name of these two leaders is Mazzini and Garibaldi. Very simply, the phase 3 is Metternich conservatism, and the response to it is called the Young Italy movement. It's called the Young Italy movement, which is Mazzini and Garibaldi. Can anybody tell me the Indian connection? Yes, Chaitanya, very good. Very good, Nikki. How are they connected to the Indian story? How are they connected to the Indian story? There was a body called Abhinav Bharat, revolutionary body. If I translate Abhinav Bharat into English, what will I get? Mitra Mela becoming V.D. Savarkar and his brother made Mitra Mela. And then they renamed it as Abhinav Bharat. What does Abhinav Bharat translate to English? Young India movement. Young Abhinav Bharat, India. So the revolutionary body Abhinav Bharat was actually based on the ideals of the Young Italy movement. And there is one more body or one more social religious reform movement based personality who used the term, or his followers use the term, young. Who is that? Come on. Very good. Derozio. Young Bengal movement. Young Bengal movement was based on the same name. Bhagat Singh, Chandrasekhar Azad, the HRA, the HSRA, Abhinav Bharat, Anusilan Samiti, all of these bodies read the literature of Mazzini and Garibaldi. Mazzini and Garibaldi are considered the first pioneers of the unification of Italy, wherein they rejected the 5-power system and tried to unite Italy as one political power. They very simply said, we do not want to be under Metternich's order. We do not want to be under 5 bodies. Yes, they are revolutionary because for Italians, they will now start to talk about very interesting things. See, why are Mazzini and Garibaldi important? Because Mazzini was a very good, important thinker. See, Mazzini argued that the way Metternich divides us is basically to divide the people in such a way that they not come together. In India, the British followed a very important policy, very similar to what Metternich is doing. What is that policy? What is that policy? Divide and rule. In India, the British divided us to rule us. This concept of divide and rule, and how Bhagat Singh always used to talk about communalism as the dividing power in India, this comes from Mazzini's understanding. What Mazzini is arguing is that this 5-power division is basically to divide and rule us. We are a nation, we have aspirations as a nation, and we need to come together to fight against these 5 powers, and we need to unite as one power. And this is the beauty of Mazzini's understanding. But the problem with Mazzini is his ideas are too hi-fi. His ideas are too hi-fi, and his literature and way of saying is extremely complex. So whilst Metternich restored the 5 powers, and there will be the Young Italy movement or Mazzini and Garibaldi who will struggle against it, the same issue which Risorgimento had, they will also have, which is that their movement was very popular amongst students, amongst professors, amongst northern Italy. But southern Italy, somehow they understand nothing. So when Mazzini said aspiration of a nation, our aptitude as a nation, southern Italy said, "Hey, what are you trying to say? What aspiration? What aptitude? We don't understand it." So this big words which he was using made no sense to the southern states itself. And that is why you would know Garibaldi very quickly gave up on South, and he rather started to work with the peasants. Knowing that the peasants are illiterate, you need to work with them to understand it. So the third phase is also a failure. This is also a failure because of limited coverage and spread in the southern Italian sector. So बातें बड़ी की है. They've talked about very big things, but now the problem is limited impact, very limited impact. So now one thing is very clear. Alfieri tried to do it. South was the issue. Napoleon gave them a feel of what it meant to be under one power. They liked it, but the people who resisted it were not able to reach out to everyone. So be it phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3, no, until and unless one person comes together, one person tries to bring them together, there's no way Italy is going to unite. It's same as Risorgimento. Issue is South are zero. They have no understanding. You go and say anything to them, they understand nothing. How second phase is a failure? Because Metternich did the opposite of it, and he basically restored all the powers back to the people who had it. So can I read this basic part out, and then we can talk about Cavour, because he's the Bismarck of Italy, and Cavour and Bismarck are two very important personalities. Is this making sense? Are you able to make that connection? Is this making sense to you? How these are things coming together? These are three stories are happening together. Once I'll make the master timeline, it will be perfectly clear in your mind. Sir, Metternich did third phase. Yes, second phase Napoleon. Yes. Okay, perfect. So see, Napoleon paved the way for Italian unification in two ways. Firstly, they had been brought under representative government for the first time with separation of power. Thus, it was for the first time that people got involved in political discussions. Second, the French redrew the territorial boundaries for effective administration. Between 1804 and 1814, there were only three parts of Italy. Parts annexed by France, part called Kingdom of Italy, and the Kingdom of Naples. However, as soon as the Congress of Vienna will happen, all these constitutional experiments will be removed. And in 1815, Metternich will maintain balance of power and give these ideas of liberalism, reformism, nationalism, try to remove them and give back the power to the five states. And during this period, the spirit of Risorgimento will come back, and now there will be two reactions. The first reaction to the Metternich conservatism is moderate, which is Confederation of Italy. We should have certain understanding of constitutional monarchy. But this is the phase, or this is the faction which becomes very popular. Mazzini now talked about a Republic of Italy. He talked about a revolutionary program which will take Italy forward. And how is Mazzini so significant? Because Mazzini had a very sophisticated understanding of nationalism. He said that every nation has a particular mission and it has to discover its own aptitude and interest. He said that this federalism, which is the division of Italy, is to basically prolong the hegemony of the ruling classes. Now, try to understand that he's using very big words. He's using Gramscian concept of hegemony. Hegemony is that you rule through consent, but you basically make a fool out of the person who's in front of you. So very simply, he's talking about very heavy things in front of the Italians who don't even understand the language itself. So he wanted an indivisible Italy, having a sense of national consciousness, the fact that everybody should take or have participation in the government itself. However, the problem which affected him was that the participation of the peasantry was zero and the main supporters were students and members of the middle class. Mazzini is from the northern Italy sector, yes. So very simply, Mazzini cannot do what he wants to do. He will struggle, but nothing will really happen. And that is why we'll make this phase 4. That is why phase 3 also did not work, which is between 1815 to 1860. So for 50 years, they will try to unite under Mazzini, but that will actually not happen. I'll give you the timelines also, don't worry. Second phase paved way for unification. Metternich came and there was a conservative reaction, but really no way of doing anything about it. So there's no movement like Frankfurt Parliament in Italy. Okay. South liked democracy, but they did not like the ideas of unification. That is the problem. When it is being done by a person who wants them to rise, they don't rise. They are very orthodox in that sense. We'll talk about Karl Marx. He's a German. German state goes to then London. We'll talk about that. Are we clear with regards to first three phases? All these three phases are failures. Don't really work out. I want to talk about now Cavour. Okay, great. Now see, Palak, this story is not complicated. It's very straightforward. German story is change after change after change. There are three attempts. Here it's very simple. Risorgimento, people don't understand. Napoleon simplifies, gives them the taste. Metternich comes back, gives them 5 power back. People do want to come together, but South does not respond. Risorgimento spirit comes back now under Mazzini and again fails. All three failures, nothing really. Okay. This movement, Mazzini, I'll talk about Priyanka. Mazzini will exist after that also. Garibaldi is going to become important in the later period. Don't worry. Simple, straightforward. First failure, Napoleon, third failure. End of story. Okay. Now, similar to what happened in Germany, the person who actually united Italy was a person called Cavour. Now, where does Cavour come from the picture? Where does he actually come in the picture from? So, if you were paying attention, see, this is the Kingdom of Sardinia and Piedmont. And this was the only sector which was ruled by an Italian king. Why does South does not respond? They don't understand. They are extremely orthodox, rural. That is the problem. Agrarian. Peasant movements always need more attention. India had the same issue. Moderates, extremists were not able to get through to the peasants. It was only Gandhi who was able to do it. So Piedmont and Sardinia, very simply, or this Kingdom of Piedmont Sardinia is the only area which an Italian ruler actually rules over. And Cavour actually rises from here. Cavour became the prime minister of the Kingdom of Piedmont and Sardinia, wherein he was able to modernize his state. So similar to what Bismarck did, Cavour modernized the Kingdom of Piedmont and Sardinia. He also went into different trade agreements. This is phase 4. If we are at 3, this will be 4, right? Okay. So went into different what we call as trade agreements, and also strengthened the army of the kingdom. But Cavour very simply knew what is Cavour's role. He is the prime minister of Kingdom of Piedmont and Sardinia. Pay attention, I'm saying every word. You're asking me the same thing. Not what is Cavour, who is Cavour. Cavour is a person. What is Cavour's role? He's the prime minister. Pay attention. I'm saying the same thing. Okay. Yes, Ilma. Yes. Okay. Now, Piedmont, Prime Minister of Piedmont of Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Piedmont and Sardinia. Cavour is a person who will start to strengthen, modernize the state, and also go into different trade agreements. Now, very simply, he's coming from the north only, because he's Piedmont of Sardinia and Piedmont is in the north only. Now, he very simply realizes that without the assistance of the big powers, there was no way that Italy could be unified. See, whilst Prussia is a big kingdom, would any great power or any big power really give any form of attention to Kingdom of Sardinia and Piedmont? No. It's a small kingdom in Italy. So the first challenge which Cavour has is to bring Piedmont and Sardinia into the attention of these big powers. And the political situation of the 1850s and 60s was actually very favorable for this to be done. Now, I'm going to use a word which I will explain it to you, but that I will explain it to you tomorrow. But I will use it here because I have to give you context. He strengthened the Kingdom of Piedmont and Sardinia, whose prime minister he is Palak. You are getting distracted, pay attention. So, he will strengthen where he is coming from. Okay, now, Cavour's first task is very simply to get help. Now, Cavour can't go to or does not have access to the British to the French or to any big power. He just can't go like Bismarck and sit in front of them and say that help us. This is what Bismarck did, which is that he went to Russia, gave help to the Tsar. He went to Britain, he went to Napoleon III, and he said, this is the point, let's do like this. Cavour does not have access like that. He's too small a power. Think of it. For example, think of it like the president of Tuvalu, a small state in Polynesia, which is in the Pacific, wants to meet Joe Biden. He will have to do something to get the attention of the US, because US is too big a power to very simply give any heed to Tuvalu or any small state which is there in these small island nations of Polynesia. Now, Cavour finds a very interesting solution for this. And the solution is why he wants other attention, because without the help of the big powers, he cannot very simply, he has to defeat in a way Spain or Austria to very simply unite Italy. In order to unite Italy, the problem is again Austria. The problem is Austria, because Austria holds the most what we call as prosperous sector, which is Venetia and even parts of Lombardy. So the problem is again Austro-Hungary. So somehow everybody wanted to kill, or everybody's enemy was Austria. So to defeat Austria, there is a need for big power intervention. And the opportunity comes to Cavour in a very beautiful way. And that is called the Crimean War. Happens between 1853 to 56. Crimean War, I will teach you. Trust me, I will. And I have to do it in the next 2 days itself. But in order to teach Crimean War, I would have to teach you first the concept of what is called the Eastern Question and all. So for now, trust me that there was a war called the Crimean War. And what I'm telling you about it, trust me that that is the basic concept. I will surely teach you this Crimean War. I will tell you the backstory of it also. But right now, just take it on face value. Can you do that? Can you do that? Yes? Okay. Now, the story of the Crimean War is very straightforward. Russia was fighting Britain, France, and the Ottoman Empire at this point of time. So don't worry about these Ottoman Empire and all. Don't ask me why, but they were fighting, which is Britain, France, and Ottoman Empire against Russia. Now, Cavour sees an opportunity here. And the opportunity was that he knew that after this war is over, there will be a treaty. And he wanted basically access to the big boys club, which is that somehow he is able to sit in this treaty. So what Cavour does, very interestingly, is that till the war had no conclusive winner, he did not get involved. He has a good army, but he does not want casualties. But when he could see that this faction was winning, now Cavour goes to the British and the French and says, "Mere paas bhi army hai. I also have army. I also want to help you." But he already knew that Russia is going to lose this war, and he knew that Britain and France is going to win the war. So last 1 year, he joins the war. So Cavour joins the effort of the British and the French so as to basically get a favor out of them. That I helped you, now you help me. And Cavour's timing was good. He was able to add the Kingdom of Piedmont and Sardinia as one alliance partner in winning this war. and Cavour did get access to the Treaty of Paris, it is called Treaty of Paris. He did get access to the Paris Congress, as it is called, or the Treaty of Paris. But when he does get access, and this is the diplomacy of Cavour, the problem is that if there were two rows of tables, he wasn't given a position on the first table. See, the British and the French are ungrateful bastards in that way. So they said, okay, you can come. But when it came to sitting with them, बोले पीछे chair लगा है. We put in a chair for you in the back. Sit. See how the big people talk. Now, basically, Cavour did get access to the Treaty of Paris, but his agenda cannot be pushed because he can't, in a way, talk to everyone that, okay, let's do one thing, let's fight with Austria, let me get united. So Cavour's agenda was unification of Italy, and he wanted an ally against the Austrians. So he does get access to Treaty of Paris, but he's not able to push his agenda. Like an observer position he's been given. He's not an active member of this treaty. He's just an observer in that sense. Now, Cavour now becomes desperate. That if he does not push the agenda here, he will never get a chance again. So now Cavour starts. No, this is not the same treaty. There are multiple Treaty of Parises. This is not related to the Third Carnatic one. Now Cavour starts to basically say something that the French Revolution is coming, but it will now come in Italy. Nothing was really happening in Italy, but he will now start to say these lines that Italy is explosive. Phat jayega. It is going to become the new French Revolution. The Italian people are losing their mind. They want to be united. Unification of Italy needs to be supported. Nothing was happening in Italy. Nobody really cared about unification at this point of time. Southern Italy did not even understand what unification meant. And therefore, he started this basic agenda. I am controlling the nationalists. If I tell them right now, they will start a French Revolution type situation in Italy. Nothing happening really. In the background, nothing. But now he's trying to basically drum up this concept that Italy is at an explosive situation. And with this agenda, he first goes to the British. मैं बोल रहा हूं, मैं कर दूंगा. Something is going to happen. Something is going to happen in Italy. British, you have to help us. You have to help us. If you will not help us, I will do it. I will do it for sure. But the British said, you do what you want to do. We have no interest in giving unification to Italy. He said, where have you come from? Piedmont, Sardinia? We don't know where it is on the map. We really don't care. So the British reject Cavour's understanding. They said, अपने पास पहले बहुत टेंशन है. We don't want to go into this concept of unification and all. I already have too much to eat. I don't want it. We already have to deal with Russia. I don't know where have you come from. You want to cut your nerve. You do it. Don't. No. Now Cavour goes to the biggest fool, which was also attending this treaty. Who's that fool? Guess. Who's that fool? Very good. The emotional fool called Napoleon III. Napoleon III was there. Now, Cavour goes to Napoleon III, to France. And you'll see that somehow the French have this habit of doing things for people, not realizing what they're actually doing. For example, giving the Americans independence after bankrupting themselves. Now Cavour will go to Napoleon III and he will do the same thing. I think Metternich is a bastard. Destroyed the legacy of such a great man called the Napoleon Bonaparte. If I could just meet the successor of Napoleon Bonaparte, I would basically go to heaven. Dhanya ho jata. So Napoleon III says, I'm the nephew of Napoleon Bonaparte. He says, it is my privilege to meet you. Again, emotional fool. It is my privilege to meet you. So he says, where have you come from? Where have you come from? Kahan se aaya? He says, Piedmont and Sardinia, but I have a problem. Napoleon III says, Bolo. What's Bolo? What is the issue? Tell me, what is it? He says that my kingdom wants to unite Italy, but there is one enemy, ek rakshas. There's one enemy, and that enemy is Austria. Will you help me fight Austria? Standard. Napoleon said, "Pehle bola tha. Austria is already my enemy." And very simply, Napoleon III says to Cavour, do one thing. Start a war with Austria. I will come and help you. You just find some reason, start a war with Austria, and then I will come and help you. And this is the way now Cavour is going to start a chain reaction. See, what Cavour is going to do, and don't worry about what you have to write in the examination. Obviously, you're not writing the whole story of how Napoleon III is basically a fool. I have everything on the PPT. Try to understand it in that way so that you remember it well. So very simply, now Napoleon III will say to very simply to Cavour, start a war with Venetia sector. I will help you. So what happens is that the kingdom of Sardinia and Piedmont, it enters into the Lombardy sector and starts a war with the Venetia sector. And as soon as Venetia is attacked, Austria responds, but France also responds. Now what happens is, now Cavour sees an opportunity. Cavour is able to take, or this is his original territory, is able to take Lombardy and is able to take Venetia. And now the point is, half of Lombardy is with which country? Half of Lombardy is with which country? Yes, very good. It is with the French. So, very simply, Cavour says to Napoleon III, you help me. Very good. You take Nice and Savoy. These are my territories, but are very French. You take these two areas, give me Lombardy. Somehow, Napoleon III saw this deal as a good deal. And very simply, France accepts these two sectors. And what Cavour has done very successfully has now very simply consolidated north of Italy. So this is how he's taken north of Italy, which is first fighting with the Austrians, and then in a way, both Bismarck and Cavour use the foolishness of Napoleon III to now exchange territories and now consolidate northern Italy. Anybody has any issue in how he took northern Italy? 10 minutes of the story is left, and thereafter we go to Industrial Revolution. Totally different cup of tea. Very interesting, very, very beautiful. This is the last part which we have to do. 10 minutes more. Anybody has any issue in the first, which is Kingdom of Sardinia and Piedmont, how it took Lombardy and it took Venetia. Nice and Savoy, not Nice, Nice and Savoy were parts of Piedmont and Sardinia, extremely French, so they exchanged territory in that sense. Okay, now he needs to take central Italy, which is Parma, Modena, Romagna, and Tuscany. So now what rather than fighting, what he does is that he does what he calls as a plebiscite, referendum, plebiscite, whatever you want to call it. He basically enters into these sectors and says that I am the Prime Minister of Piedmont and Sardinia. I have consolidated north of Italy. Do you want to be part of a united Italy? Now, because this area was also the area in which Mazzini was very, very active, through a referendum, he will take this second sector. Very simply, very, very simply, people will give overwhelming response to the way he wanted to unite Central Italy. To the way he wanted to unite Central Italy. He will just hold a plebiscite and very simply people will say, yes, we want to be part of Northern Italy united. So in a way, the areas which had always been very, very active have now come together, which is Northern and Central. This was the point where Mazzini and Garibaldi, specifically Mazzini, was very, very popular. The Risorgimento was also here only. The way they responded after Metternich was also here only. So through his diplomatic skills, he's got Northern sector. Through using Mazzini's base, he's taken second sector. Anybody has any issue here? Anyone? No? Now what happens is that seeing that Northern Italy had got consolidated, in the Kingdom of Two Sicilies or Naples, which is basically Spanish area, what happens is Garibaldi starts a peasant movement and he's able to overthrow, yes, referendum plus exchange of power. He's able to overthrow the local Spanish government. So as soon as, for example, think of it like the revolt of 1857, Garibaldi basically instigates the peasants to rise, the peasants rise, and the Spanish, they're quite far away from this sector. The local governments of the Spanish in the Two Sicilies are basically overthrown. Now, seeing this as an opportunity, and Cavour knew that this could also go out of hand, Cavour will very quickly move to the Kingdom of Two Sicilies from the Piedmont and Sardinia sector, and he will take this sector. He will go to Garibaldi and say, thank you very much. You have done a very big favor for me. Now let me also take this sector. Let me also take this sector, which is the shoe of Italy. So this was basically not Cavour's action, but Garibaldi's action. And Cavour takes this as an, or basically very simply, he's able to use this opportunity to capture the third sector. The third sector. Now, the area which is left for unification are the papal states. Papal states means comes under the Pope. Who protects the Pope? Who protects the Pope? France. Very good. France protects the Pope. This is what Napoleon had said, that I make Catholicism my state religion, I will protect you. This is what Napoleon had said. Now, if I touch the Pope at this point of time, would it be a very good decision by Cavour? No. Now, what Cavour does is, he waits till 1870. In 1870, the French will do their most favorite job, which they love to do, which is that as soon as Napoleon III will die, they will go into what? Writing another constitution. They will go into constitution making. Now, Cavour will silently, to chupchap, silently enter into these areas, and except for the small Vatican City, he will take all these areas. And the Pope will keep on saying, France protect us, France protect us. उनको कोई फर्क ही नहीं. They don't care. They are writing constitution. Third Republic. We have to be a republic. They said, who is I? Don't France protect us. Napoleon is dead. Napoleon's nephew is also dead. They didn't care only. So taking the papal church or papal areas was a strategic move when France was again in chaos. So basically, the first phase, France played a very important role. The fourth phase, in which they had to take the papal areas, France's habit of writing constitutions helped Cavour consolidate this sector, and together the first, second, third and fourth part together is now what we call today as Italy, and the unification of Italy is done. Does this make sense? Yes, I'll read it out from the PPT. What you actually have to write in the examination, I'll give you a small break, and then we change the taste to, or rather I'll make the three timelines together. Then I will give you a break, and then we can start the story of the Industrial Revolution, the most important. Why did they leave the Vatican City? Because Shreyank, it would not have been very wise to kill the Pope in the process of doing this. So they obviously are Christians, so they can't just go and kill the Pope and take the Vatican City also. They said, Vatican City, good area, take it, smallest nation today, happy. Phase 4 is very simply when France is in chaos between 1870 and 71. Cavour enters, take this area. Vatican City is left, which is the smallest country in the world till today. Small area which the church controls. Okay, now see, how did, this is what you have to write in the examination. See, the very important exam oriented material, I'm writing it down itself. If you will write all of these points together, you will get a 250 to 300 word answer. And as it is, UPSC is not asked a question out of this area till this point. Okay. Dhanya, Lombardy, half of it was with Austria, half of it was with the French. Okay. Now, Cavour is called the architect of modern Italy. He's a Piedmont patriot coming from the Piedmont area itself. He will modernize Piedmont, go into commercial treaties with the Europeans, lower the tariff rates so that he can have a better army, develops an industry and what we call as railway also. By 1849, Piedmont had emerged as an economic and political leader of Italy itself. He also had the Italian National Society, which helped him in spreading the concept of unified Italy in that regard. However, without the great powers getting involved, he could not have done anything. But to the great powers, he used to say that he can unleash a radical movement. And to the nationalist, he used to say that he is the only one who can unite Italy. Now starts his game of chess. First is that in the Crimean War, Cavour provides assistance to Britain and France. He believed his intervention in favor of Britain and France would help him or would obligate them to help him. This intervention was part of Cavour's plan to get access to the Congress of Paris, the Treaty of Paris, where his actions would have allowed for the unification of Italy. However, though Cavour is allowed to attend the Congress of Paris, he is only a subordinate ally and is not able to push the agenda of Italian unification. On being denied assistance by the British, Cavour turned to the French. In July of 1858, a treaty was signed whereby Piedmont would provoke a war with Austria and France, and very simply, France would come to Piedmont's assistance. Eventually, he gained Lombardy, Venetia, and parts of the Papal States, while France acquired Nice and Savoy. This is the exchange of power. Thereafter, Cavour agreed to hand over Nice and Savoy to France if France agreed for the union of Parma, Modena, Tuscany, and therefore the northern Italian sector was united through what we call as a plebiscite. Central Italy seemed to have voted unanimously in the favor of a united Piedmont. In southern Italy, meanwhile, a peasant movement broke out in the way that Garibaldi decided to liberate this sector. Cavour, fearing the revolutionary forces taking full control of this sector itself, he will move to the southern sector and take the southern sector away from Garibaldi. Italy will then gain a small part of Venetia, which is basically when he will go and meet Bismarck and change a small part of Venetia, which Italy had, which basically Bismarck had. And once there will be political chaos in France by 1871, he will unify Italy fully. This is the story of the unification of Italy. Now, let's do one thing. Let me give you a break here. When I come back, I make the three timelines together. We revise and we then go to Industrial Revolution. Can we do that? Everybody is with me? No issues. That module number 3 is a little bit too heavy, multiple stories together. But once you have endured this, now the story is going to be very simple, straightforward. Why nobody helped Austria against Italy? Because Pooja, when Austria had the power, they misused it. Metternich was an Austrian people started to hate Austria generally because of Metternich's action. Okay. Let's do one thing. Let's summarize these stories and let's move to Industrial Revolution. Now, this is the story of France, Europe. This is Germany. This is Italy. Now, France or Europe, because this would be true for both Europe and France generally, because basically Europe is dictating or France dictating the timeline for us right now. So we have the French Revolution here. Then this is Napoleon as emperor. This is Battle of Waterloo. This is Metternich system. This is Revolution of 1848. This is Napoleon III as emperor. This is nothing. This is Third Republic. Napoleon III died. Now, consequent to this story, the simple point is you have the Holy Roman Empire, Holy Roman Empire. This is Confederation of Rhine, and this is the period of German Confederation. Thereafter, rise of Bismarck, 1866, Austria War, and this is France War. This is the period of Napoleonic occupation. So, if we come to this story, phase 1, Risorgimento, French Revolution, Risor, phase 1A, Risorgimento, phase 1B, five power rule, 3 power, or rather 3 division under Napoleon. Thereafter, this is phase 2. Then this is phase 3, Mazzini and Garibaldi, but not successful. Conservative restoration of 5 powers. Radical reaction. Rise of Cavour. Phase 1, 2, 3, and 4. North, Central, and South consolidated. Now, do you see how these stories are actually connected with each other? That very simply, they are happening parallel to each other and the pattern is similar. The most important phase here would be Napoleonic occupation and Cavour and Bismarck are the two people on which the question can come. Anybody has now any issue in module number 3? Anybody? Anyone? Vatican City concept is the Vatican City is the Pope is not just the religious leader of the Christians, he is also a head of state, because Vatican City is the only place which the Catholic Church rules and it is the smallest state in the world. Second part, referendum, he wins north, then he goes to the central sector, has a referendum in that area, everybody wants to get consolidated with Piedmont. If Austria acts like idle, even Cavour occupied its all territory. I'm not getting what you're trying to say here. Point 4 of module 4. Module 4 we have not started only. So what is the point 4 which you're talking about? Rise of Cavour is prior to Bismarck. Yes, in a way. Bismarck is 62. He is already active after 1850. How is there was a king? Chituri, that area was not ruled by anybody properly. Referendum is not like that they had a proper EVM based election commission go and do a referendum. It's a standard basic, what we call as people being asked if they want to be part of it. So don't think of it like modern elections. You don't need to note this down. You will get it as a part of the annotated PPT. Phase 4, very simply, is when there was political chaos in France, again writing a constitution, they take the papal areas, specifically Rome, which used to be under the Pope. Can I move to Industrial Revolution? Can we end the story of this module here? We've already given more than enough time. No question has come from this area till this point. UPSC has not asked a question till this point from this area. Mazzini, Garibaldi are contemporaries to each other. Phase 2 is in moderate, you want to say it is Napoleon. Phase 3 is that, totally different. Yes, Shreyank. Mahima, that's a hypothetical question. Since South Italy is Orthodox, was it assumed by North that they liked democracy? There's nothing liking about democracy. It's about unification. The point is they like it, they don't like it. Cavour wanted to unify. See, if you understand one thing, Cavour and Bismarck did not do it for the people. They did it for themselves. Try to understand this point. They are consolidating these countries for themselves, not for the people. So be very, very clear with regards to this, that this is a very personal thing which they are doing. They are consolidating power. They are expanding their area. Prussia becomes bigger and Piedmont becomes bigger. So very simply, yes, Mazzini is north, Garibaldi is south. The simple straightforward point is, question is going to be, how did Bismarck unify Germany? How did Cavour unify? If you have seen the questions which came to you on Saturday, every weekend you get a question from me, 5 questions. Did you see those 5 questions? Did you see the 5 questions which came to you? There was one question which very simply was, what was the role of Bismarck in the consolidation or unification of Germany? Same, remove Bismarck, add Cavour and remove Germany and add Italy. That is the only thing. Or also one question could be, what is the role of Napoleon in the unification of Germany and Italy? That is again consolidation, simplification, consolidation, simplification. So with the stroke of 8 a.m., now I move to the 4th module, which is a very important module, out of which at least 3 to 4 questions have come. And I would like to now talk about Industrial Revolution. Yes, can I do that and we shift our focus away from module number 3? I want everybody's assertion here, because now the taste is going to totally change. Your what we call as testing period is over. This is a very interesting, very logical module, unlike the 3 we've done till this point. If you have endured this, it only becomes easier from this point forward. Okay. No, both get consolidated in the same period. 1870-71 is the period in which both come into existence, Germany and Italy. In the question related to the yes, Italy, you have to talk about how Cavour did it. First, Crimean War concept, then how he took north, Nice, Savoy, south, then central, and then the papal sectors. Okay. How many questions from this module? Previously, 3 to 4 have come. Doesn't matter how many come. This module is very fundamental to understanding the First and the Second World War. So now stop being an English utilitarian and let's talk about Industrial Revolution. Okay. Now, for the next 1.5 hours till 9:30, what we have to understand is the concept of Industrial Revolution. Now, let's try to understand what do I mean by the Industrial Revolution. Because what students do, and a lot of teachers also do it, which is that they don't understand the difference between industrialization and industrial revolution. These are two very, very different things. Because industrialization can happen without industrial revolution, but industrial revolution only happens when there are two processes which happen together. So, what is now, there are certain questions which we are going to answer through the discussion we will do in the next half an hour. The 3 questions which are in front of us is, what is industrial revolution? First question. Second is, why did it happen in Europe, especially in Britain first, and why not in Asia? Why did the Industrial Revolution not happen in Asia? This is a very important question we need to understand. What is Industrial Revolution? Why did it happen in Europe, specifically in Britain first? Why not in Asia? There are 3 questions which we need to understand. Now let's understand the first question. The first question is that Industrial Revolution is process 1 plus process 2. Process 1 plus process 2. But then what is process 1? This is a generic economic understanding I'm giving you. This is not specific to history. This is just specific how we understand the Industrial Revolution as a concept. Process 1 is, now please pay attention, when the, now before I say this, because all of you are already economists in your own right, so I have to say this to you. First things first, when I'm talking about the Industrial Revolution, which is 18th century, 1700s, there are only 2 sectors which exist: primary and secondary. There's no tertiary sector. Primary sector is agriculture, raw material producing. Secondary sector is industries, which is manufacturing. Tertiary is services. Services-based economy does not exist. So before you write this in the comment, I'm already giving you the disclaimer. Third sector, tertiary sector does not exist. Primary and secondary exist. Service-based economies are very Second World War or even First World War. After First World War, specifically after Second World War, there was a very big spike in tertiary sector, which is service-based economy, the globalizing world as we call it. However, we will only work with two sectors. Clear, everyone? Everyone, this point should be clear. Only two sectors. Okay. Now the first process is when the secondary sector outperforms the primary sector or the GDP contribution of secondary sector is more than primary, we believe that the economy is industrializing. You can see this part, right? Process 1, when the secondary sector outperforms the primary sector. Because in my preview, it's showing out little bit out. You can see it. Process 1, when secondary sector outperforms the primary sector. Everybody can see it? No, sir. Yes, sir. No, sir. So I'll write it down again. 1 second. It happens sometimes. I have a preview here so I can see what is happening. When secondary sector outperforms the primary sector, or the GDP contribution of secondary sector is more than primary. Very simple example. For example, in 2000, rather you'll mix this up. For example, in 1800, primary and secondary, and 1900, for example, the contribution of the primary sector was 100 pounds and the secondary sector was 50 pounds. Now in 1900, it becomes 150 pounds, but this becomes 300 pounds. So this is what we call as GDP contribution is significantly up. It does not mean that primary has gone down. It just means that secondary is outperforming the, rather secondary is outperforming the primary and the GDP contribution is more. Now, if we go by this definition, is India a industrializing country or industrialized country? If we go by this concept, if we go by this, it is industrializing because for the period we are talking about, or generally we talk about, the secondary sector is outperforming the primary sector and its GDP contribution is more. Now, what people tend to do is that they define industrial revolution is also this. They define industrial revolution as also this, that when secondary outperforms primary. But that is technically not true. The first is only an artificial indicator. When your secondary outperforms your primary, it is not truly that the country has gone through industrial revolution. It only is an indicator that yes, your secondary sector is good and it is outperforming the primary sector. Now, what is this process, second process, which is really the most important in determining the industrial revolution? Everybody is following me till this point. Now you can see how the taste of the module has totally changed. Now we're not going to political history. This is totally economic history based logical understanding. Okay. Now what is this secondary or second concept which truly makes an economy into industrial revolution? Now, when there is movement of labor out of the primary sector to the secondary sector, or the labor migration from primary to secondary is equal to industrial revolution. It's not called social mobility, it's called structural transformation. This is not the word for social mobility. Example, 1800, 1900, primary, secondary, 1,50,000 people were involved, and now there are 20,000 people in this, and there are 1,30,000 people here. So basically, there's a movement you can see of how 80,000 moved to the primary to secondary. This is called structural transformation. This is the word called structural transformation, wherein your labor market totally changes. Now, according to this, India is not an industrial country, because in India, labor is still stuck in the primary sector. Labor is still stuck in the primary sector. The first is basically totally getting what we call as satisfied, but the second process is not getting. So what we believe is that when secondary outperforms the primary plus labor movement out of primary to secondary equal to industrial revolution. I'll tell you about the good situation right now also, is equal to industrial revolution. So industrial revolution is both about GDP contribution, but is also about labor force participation. Anybody has any issue in understanding these two things? That what does an industrial revolution actually entail, or what it means in that sense? Because if this is clear, I'll tell you why India is not an industrial country till today. What can we say as industrialization? The first process one is industrialization plus labor movement equals to industrial revolution. Anjali, it rather the second process and the first process will happen together. They're never parallel. I'll give you a question. Yeah, it happens parallelly but are interconnected. Sure. I'll show you Britain and you will understand that. Can I tell you the present situation why we don't call India as an industrial country? Come on, please. I need more participation. Come on. The political history is over. Now you do have no reason to be dead right now at 8 a.m. in the morning. Okay. Labor in which sector? How much labor participation is there? Now, see, in India, why do we say that India still is not an industrial country? Because in India, we have a very peculiar concept, and that concept is single male circular migration. See, in India, what happens is our labor is caught up in both sectors. During the season of, or when there is demand, the labor which is only male member leaving the family in the what we call as the agriculture sector, in the rural sector, they will alone shift to the urban sector. They will work throughout the season when there is demand. Single male circular, because once it becomes off season, they go back to agriculture. So basically, during season, they will move to the urban sectors. This you would have seen if you live in a metropolitan city. There's a lot of movement of labor. A lot of people will come in a certain period. Once they go into that festive Diwali season, the Durga Puja season, that season, they will go back. They will go back in the off season and they will come in the main season. So there is basically, they are both agriculturalists and labor at the same point of time. This is called single male circular, which is they're moving in both sectors. Therefore, in India, structural transformation never happened. Structural transformation never happened. And that is because of how colonialism was, because of how our economy was. See, you will not call it unemployment. The people are not unemployed. See, I have 1 bigha jameen. I produce something on it. When I need additional income, I go and work in the industry, get some income, go back and then produce it. Do you call that person unemployed? Do you call that person unemployed? No, he is an agriculturalist also. He is also a way of very simply being a labor. See, this is not because of colonialism itself. It is because of an Indian concept itself. When I will teach you in modern India deindustrialization, this is something which was always inbuilt into our weaving or our agricultural sector. Because before the British came, a weaver was never a full weaver. He always had an additional income from agriculture. And when the demand in weaving used to go down, he used to pick it up from agriculture. When the demand used to go up, he would then go back to weaving. And that is what basically the land revenue systems destroyed, which is that they could never go back to agriculture. We'll talk about that when we'll talk about deindustrialization. Deindustrialization is based on this concept itself, which is that it's the nature of Indian labor, and that has not been just that the British destroyed us. It has been previously also like this. Okay. What about female counterpart? Do it have impact on structural movement? Smita, the fact is the whole family needs to move from the rural to urban sector. Till the family is still stuck up in the rural sector, we call it, as we say it in economic terms, we are in a perpetual or what we call as infinite process of structural transformation. We are just caught up in this concept. See, this is not of any purpose to you in our discussion, but I'm trying to explain to you what is happening in India. Structural transformation. Structural transformation. This is a very hi-fi concept I'm telling you. This is Sabyasachi, but what we call it Bhattacharya, very, very interesting personality, a very interesting terminology he uses. India has been always in this cycle. It's stuck in this cycle itself. Right? So we've been able to answer the first question, which is what is industrial revolution? And I hope you understand what is the present situation also. Yes. Can we move to the second question? Vicious cycle, whatever cycle you want to call it. No, it's not a vicious cycle. See, it's a good thing also. I'll tell you one thing. Not having structural transformation is good also. Because when I will tell you the social impact of industrial revolution, you will realize that industrial revolution, we tend to think of it like a magic which will change everything. But for human race, it is the worst thing which could ever happen. So it's not a good thing to have structural transformation. If you get it, okay, the timing matters. So can I now move to the second discussion? Why Europe and not Asia? Industrial revolution is when the primary is outperformed by the secondary and there is labor movement out of primary into secondary. That's it. Okay. Women participation in Europe as labor, such a random question you are asking me. First, let me teach you what it is. Don't give me NCERT type questions. Wait, I will tell you what it is. Women's participation is going to be important, underpaid, but important, which we will come to. Social impact, last thing which we discuss. Can I discuss the second question, please? Example of industrial revolution I'm coming to. That is what I'm telling you. Okay. Now we are discussing why industrial revolution happened in Europe, Britain first. Why Britain? That is the question. Can anybody tell me why? Anybody tell me why? Colonies, raw material, capital, sea routes, colonies, World War One, discovery, colonization, steam engine invention, Adam Smith, Renaissance, domination, money, trade, scientific revolution, feudal system, scientific revolution. See, I'll phrase it for you, and let's see. I'll phrase it for you. Lot of people say that industrial revolution happened in Britain because of India. Would this be a right statement or a wrong statement? So it's 50-50. Some of you are saying right, some of you are saying wrong. And the answer to this question is the process of industrial revolution was within Britain itself. So irrespective of India, it would have gone to this path, but India facilitated it. India was a catalyst rather than being a cause. It was a catalyst. So it was not fueled by, it was not, the word is not fueled. To feed India, industrial revolution actually became what it was, which I will show you now. And that is what the discussion we need to have. And that is the beauty of this chapter itself. So let's do one thing. Let's try to answer this question. For that, we have to now take a time machine and go to 1700. So now please pay attention. I want you to think, I want you to understand it so you don't have to learn it. Okay. 1700, we have reached rural Britain. Now in this sector, this rural part of Britain we are in, there is one part of the land which is basically public land. as they were called commons. You would have seen it for in your city, in your uh, city, town, village, that there is common land, maidans, lake, standard things, not something new to us, nothing generally. So parks and all. Then you have certain peasants and certain landlords. Certain landlords. This is private property. This is private property. So very simply, we have common land, which is public land, and we have private land, which is nothing but you have private property, common land. I'm audible and visible, right? No issues there? Okay. Because in the preview there was an issue. So it's no, yes, no issues. Okay. You're saying no issues. Okay. Now, let's take the population of this sector to be 100 people. And the demand for grains is also 100 kgs. 1 kg, 1 person. The system is that the farmers plus agricultural labor. There are two occupations which you can have. Either you are a farmer or you're an agri labor. What is the difference between a farmer and agri labor? Agricultural labor and farmer. What is the difference? Very good. It is the concept of land. That one owns land, the other one does not own land. Very good. Perfect. So one owns land, the other one does not own land. Farmer has his own land, but they work on someone else's land. Now, these farmers and labor are capable of producing 100 kgs, and that is the demand. What do we call this type of a village? Wherein the demand is 100 kgs, farmers, agri labor can produce 100 kgs, people are 100. What do you call this type of land or this type of agriculture? Self-sufficient. Very good. It's a self-sufficient village. Does not need any out or what we call as subsistence agriculture, but we'll call it self-sufficient. Now here we have established three things. Farmer and agri labor are the two basic occupations which are there. And second, we've also established that this is a self-sufficient village. Population is 100, 100 kgs is needed. Farmer, agri labor is that. Perfect. Now fast forward, and we take our time machine to 1750. We take our time machine to 1750. When we take our time machine to 1750, we go to the same village again. We go to the same village. 1 second, yes. We go to the same village. We again have commons, public property, and we have private property. Now, the population of this village has increased from 100 to 200 people. The two occupations are farmer or agri labor. Now, how much will be the grain demand? How much will be the grain demand? Very good. 200 kgs. 200 kgs. Now, there's an increased demand for grains. And if there is a increased demand for grains, there are two solutions to increased demand for food. Two solutions. The first solution is increase land under agriculture, which is called agrarian expansion. And second would be increase agri productivity, which is same land, more yield. Am I correct in saying this? Import export is not an option. Don't bring in 2023 modern economics into it. Import export is not an option. Yes, two options. Make sense? Okay. Now tell me which is easier, first or second? Which is the easiest to do? First. See, for second to happen, you need technological change. First is the easiest. First is the easiest. Because for second, you need technological change, new concepts of agricultural tools needed to come, that needs innovation. So for second, you need research and development. First is just to take what is extra. So now rural Britain has two paths it can take. Rural Britain, two paths it can take, which is agrarian expansion, add more land to agriculture, or innovation in agricultural technology, which increases productivity. Now, Britain had a very peculiar concept which blocked this path. And they had to go to this path. And that unique process is called the enclosure movement. It's called the enclosure movement. Now, what is the enclosure movement? See, I think it will not come as a surprise to us as Indians that MPs and MLAs can have nexus with big landlords, very, very big people who have a lot of money and land. It should not come as a surprise. In India, it is a standard thing, which is that politicians mostly appease the people who have a lot of money or land. So in Britain, in the 1750s, via a nexus, which is a relationship between big landlords and members of parliament, members of parliament, there was a movement in rural Britain sanctioned by the Enclosure Acts, wherein big landlords enclosed the common lands and made land an expensive and scarce, or rather we'll say non-accessible resource. See, what happened in Britain is that this common land would have been the best candidate where these extra 100 people would have worked. These 100 people would have, for example, become 20-30 farmers and 70 to 60 agricultural labor. They would have expanded into the common land and they would have produced more. So basically, this common land was the lifeline. But what happens is that in Britain, if these are 4 big landlords, what they did was that they took the common land amongst themselves. They expanded into common land and they took up the common land itself. It's called enclosure. The name itself says enclosure movement. The landlords legally, yes, legally, not illegally, through a nexus, the landlords went to the parliamentarians. Most of these landlords were MPs themselves. And these MPs actually went and passed a law which is called the Enclosure Act. And the Enclosure Act allowed the British Parliamentary Act allowed the landlords to legally enclose common lands. I think in India again, encroachment, you understand. Encroachment of public land, you understand. That every year you come and your neighbor's boundary wall is 10 to 15 steps forward. India, we again understand encroachment. Imagine that there comes a law from the Indian Parliament that every landlord who has 100 acres can go and enclose the public park and lake for capitalist agriculture to happen. This is basically what happened in Britain. It's a very specific thing which happened in Britain. Encroachment means which is to capture land. The big landlords captured land and enclosed them within their own estates. See, the enclosure movement is problematic because it basically blocks the first path. Enclosure movement is a legally binding, legally sanctioned encroachment of public land by big landlords in the name of doing big cash crop based agriculture. But if you are going to do cash crop agriculture, does it actually increase the food production? Encroachment of public land by landlords is enclosure movement. No. So basically, enclosure movement does two things. Firstly, does not increase food production, and also now people cannot become farmers. Anybody has any issue in understanding this? Because then I will tell you what happens to the second path. Anybody has any issue here? Come on, I need everybody's assertion. This is a little bit technical, but very easy. Okay. Perfect. Now, see. Population increases. Population increases. Eka, listen to me. Population increase. Food demand increases. Two paths. Agrarian expansion or agriculture productivity increase. Cannot happen due to enclosure movement. Cannot happen because of enclosure movement. Landlords enclose public land for cash crop production, and no one can be a farmer as no land available. Someshri, very simple, straightforward. This is not done illegally. This is legally sanctioned by Parliament. And that should not come as a shock to you because the MPs and the people were intermixed. These are called the Enclosure Acts. They are enclosing for commercial agriculture. How decrease in land for agriculture? Sneha, I need to still produce 100 kgs more. If I will enclose the available land and then start to produce rubber on it, you will eat rubber. You will eat rubber? No. Still this 100 kg has to come from somewhere. So if you're enclosing for commercial crops, it makes no sense because you need more food. So are we clear with regards to how enclosure movement does not really allow for two things? First, there is no occupation of farmer which is available. And second, there is still the need for more food. Yes or no? Because if still no, tell me. Even with time due to hereditary assets would kept dividing, reducing. No, Abhijit. It will get consolidated within the same landlord itself. Okay. No, that is not the reason why they captured India, Palak. Not that simple, straightforward. First, tell me, do you understand how does the enclosure movement block the first path? This path is blocked. I want everybody's assertion. Say yes or no. Don't understand, tell me. Okay. Now, enclose means to enclose. घेरा करना. Encroachment. घेराव. Okay. Now, there's a saying that necessity is the mother of invention. Now, very simply, the British have to go this path. And because the British have to go on this path, now they have chosen the path of agricultural productivity increase. For that, you need technology change, which they are forced to do. So they come up with three very important technologies. One is called seed drill, Rotherham plow, and better seed variety. Now, very simply, I'll show you these things, which is, one second, give me 1 second. This is a seed drill. What basically does is, it can sow seeds in 4 rows at one go. So you don't need a lot of labor for this. And this is called a Rotherham plow. With 2 horses and 1 man, you can now plow this thing, same thing, the soil which was very heavy, which previously would need, for example, 3 to 4 labor. So it has an iron tip here, so it makes it very easy to plow heavy soil. Why was land not available? Enclosure movement means people are not allowed to increase their land even with generation. So Amishi, that's not the point. I have 100 acres. I make it 150 acres. But I need more people to become farmers. So if you are an island nation and you have limited amount of land and the available land is also enclosed by landlords, doesn't it decrease the number of land which is available to everyone else? It can't be that difficult. We are obsessed with land in India. So isn't it the concept of encroachment? You encroach, therefore there is no land available. If land is available, it is so expensive, nobody can buy it. Rameshri, you have to say yes or no. It's a very straightforward concept. Commercial crops are increasing. Landlords have increased their own land. Wealthy becoming wealthy will not give you the answer. Okay. Now there's a problem on this path also. There's a problem. Farmers have own land, how they get the right to public property. Farmers have own land, how they get right to public property. Farmers don't get right to public property. The landlords go to the parliament, get an act and take public land. It can't be that difficult. Enclosure Act, नाम में enclosure है. So enclosure act, enclosure movement, capture movement, capturing land. Big people capturing land should not come as a surprise to Indians at least. So enclosure movement is a legally sanctioned parliamentary act which allows big landlords to consolidate land. They already have very big land. They do not do food production on it. They do commercial production, commercial cash crop production, which in turn means that they are not adding to the food stock of Britain. This is the last time I'm going to say it. Now you have to watch the video again. I have this, you have the recording. Try to figure it out what it means. Now, the problem with this path is, please pay attention. The problem with this path is, if agriculture productivity, please pay attention, productivity goes up, it means that labor productivity will also go up. And if labor productivity goes up, labor demand goes down or up? Labor demand goes up or down? Very good. See, if 10 men were producing 1 kg. Now 5 men are producing 1 kg. Labor productivity has increased. So labor demand will either remain constant or go down. Now tell me one thing. Those 100 people who were born in this period, can they become a farmer? Can they become a farmer? No. Reason? Enclosure movement. Can they become agricultural labor? No, because agri productivity has gone up and labor productivity has also gone up. Now do you get the pretext of these 100 people being surplus unemployed population in rural Britain? Now do you get it from where that labor movement is going to come? Now, if you understand this, I would want to go to urban Britain and then bring both the stories together, and then you will realize how beautifully it adds up together. Can I do that? I've been building up on this in such a way that you understand the process. Very simply, 1700 to 1750, there's an increase in population, so grain demand goes up. The grain demand can only be done by two things. Either you increase the land or you increase labor productivity and agriculture productivity. Increase land is easiest. However, it is basically not possible because of the enclosure movement, which blocks people from becoming farmers. And as it is, cash raw production goes up, not food production. So they have to go to the second path. By taking the second path, the issue is that with better productivity of resources, labor productivity will also go up. So labor demand will go down. And when labor demand will go down, very simply, the person cannot become a farmer and the person cannot become an agricultural labor. So he has no other option but to sit as surplus unemployed labor, and the demand for labor is going to come from where? Urban Britain. So can I discuss urban Britain and then we basically discuss these two stories together? Yes? Okay. Urban Britain, same concept is there, that between 1700 to 1750, there's a population increase. Now population increase very simply increases demand for manufactured goods. What, sir, at this time, what divide rural urban Britain? If you're in a city and town, you are urban. If you're in a rural countryside, you are rural. Agriculture, export, it's a little bit of manufacturing, it is urban. Increase demand for manufacturing goods. So small factories come up to meet the demand. Now, please pay attention. Because we come into the picture. Now, we will come into the picture. Please pay attention. See, till this point, the labor demand is not very high. But what will happen is, Britain gets access to the market in Africa and India. So it is not our resources they need, it is the demand that they need. So Britain gets access to market in Africa and India. This will lead to exponential, rather we'll say, this will lead to major jump in demand, and these factories will now become industries, and industry needs labor. And where does this labor come from? Where does this labor come from? Rural to urban labor migration. Now, if you allow me, I would like to make the one slide in which I would like to have rural urban in the same slide, and we bring both of them together. Can I do that? Are you now understanding how we are basically, in a way, ticking both boxes? Rural to urban migration and industrialization. Industrial revolution was this only, right? Industrial revolution was two things: process one, process two. You see, process one is also happening, process two is also happening. So, very simply, population increases. And see, people tend to think that history is factual, but this is basically all logical. There's no rocket science which is happening here. It's all logical. If you look at it, it's all logically linked to each other. These are processes which are happening throughout history, and there are certain ways in which you need to understand it. So you see, population increases. You have rural, urban. In rural enclosure movement plus technological change, more food, more goods. So enclosure movement plus technological change leads to agri productivity is up, labor demand is stagnant or down, and this equals to surplus unemployed labor. On the other hand, urban factories develop plus colonial market plus colonial resources plus navigation rather good banking sector plus political stability equals to industries, and industries need labor. That labor comes from rural to urban mass migration. Can we use this as mind map? This is a mind map only, but don't make it in the examination and let the examiner figure out what to make out of it. This was your revision. Now, do you understand why Britain? Because the enclosure movement only happened in Britain. So without the left hand, the right cannot exist. Without the right, the left cannot exist. But colonial market was more important than resources. This is the first important impetus. Then they will start to change our economy to feed the industrial revolution. So it was about feeding India rather than India feeding Britain. So it is India's demand which was important, and that is why they had to deindustrialize us so that they can push in their cloth into Britain. Now, if we understand this, I would like to discuss why it did not happen in Asia. And then we discuss the British story, which is basically now case studies we have to discuss. Case study of Britain, France, and Germany. Yes? Okay. Are we clear? Does everybody understand every word written on this slide? I want everybody's yes. Then only we move forward. Yes, it is, Deepika. It has to be rise in population. If population does not increase, demand will not increase. Okay. Now, the question, why not Asia? For example, India or China. Why not? Can anybody tell me why? 3 causes are there. Very good, Chaitanya. Abundant land. We have no issue of land. Second, it's not colonial rule. It has nothing to do with colonial rule. See, land was never an issue. Agrarian expansion always available. But what is more problematic in the Indian or the Chinese problem is disguised unemployment and no technological change as no need. See, firstly, no technological change because we never needed that, because there the issue was there was no land. So they needed agricultural change or technological change. But the biggest issue in India is till today's disguised unemployment, or which is called overemployment, which is that 3 people are needed on that job, but 10 are working on it. You would have seen it for sure in road works, in multiple works in India. One person to just wave the red flag, one person to then make sure that there is one more person with the red type of light which is there. One person is to just make sure that the person does not fall from above. So the point is 3 people are working and there is only one person's job. So we have what we call as disguised unemployment. They are basically unemployed, but they seem to be employed. Agriculture India, same thing. Whole family is working. Job of 3 people, 10 people are there. So these are the reasons why in India it was very, very simply the case that disguised unemployment, no technological change, and agriculture was. So it's not colonial rule. The reason for the industrialization were never there itself. So I started with 3 questions. Are we all clear with regards to the 3 questions we have covered? You started with 3 questions. Why Britain? Why not Asia? What is industrial revolution? Great. Okay. Now, when we talk about, now we basically have to go into case studies. See, when we talk about industrial revolutions, there were 3 phases in which it happened in the world. 3 phases. Factories established in urban areas fulfill unemployment issue, but how grain issue in people area from where they moved from. See, agricultural productivity going up means that they will be able to produce within the same land and less labor more grains. So yeah, pay attention. Agriculture productivity means same amount of land, better yield. Yield increases. Better type of seeds means that they can produce out of the same land which they were producing 100, they will produce 200 now. So that problem is automatically sorted out itself. Okay, 3 phases. First phase, 1750 to 1820s. It is in Britain. Second phase, 1820s to 1900. Here you have Germany, France, USA, and third phase is 1900 onwards, which is basically Japan. Now we need to basically study the case study of these 5 countries. So Britain, I have explained to you already. I have to just add one part more and then we'll read out of the PPT. And then I will discuss Germany and France with you. This is the basic agenda before we leave at 9:30. Clear? So let's talk about Britain. Let's talk about Britain. Now Britain, there were 2 phases of industrial revolution. First is called the 1750 to 1800. Then it is 1800 to 1850 onwards. This is called the cotton phase. And this is called the heavy industries phase. See, the cotton phase is the first way in which they industrialized, where the textile industry was the one which industrialized first. That is why Lancashire cotton, the Manchester cotton started to enter into India. And the reason for this was very straightforward. Demand was there because India, Africa, even rest of Europe wanted cotton. Second, it was easy to industrialize. And there were multiple innovations which had also come up in this period in textile industry. So these 3 together allowed the cotton phase to develop. And at this point of time, till 1820s, 1850s basically, there was no other power which was industrial. Britain was the first industrial power. Thereafter, what they will get out of this is capital. They will get out of this capital, a lot of money. And with the rise of the blast furnace, blast furnace is very, very important for what? Iron smelting. And with iron smelting blast furnace, they will go into iron, steel, railways, and heavy industries phase after they did cotton. So they had basically 2 phases. First the cotton phase, and then the later phase was heavy industry. Now, very simply, Britain did everything on its own. Be it the research and development, be it the innovation, be it the trial and error. Everything Britain did itself. And that is why it took Britain time to become a proper industrial power by 1820, because heavy industries is basically your real industrial revolution. So that needed a lot of trial and error, innovation, resources, capital, and a lot of energy in that regard. Now, when we talk about France and Germany, they have a something called a very interesting advantage. Now, I'll give you a scenario and you tell me what it is. So you are preparing for UPSC. So you would first, you also have a sibling, your brother or sister. So you are basically preparing for UPSC. You will first not trust me, then not make notes. You will go to multiple sources. Then you will trust me. Then you will listen to what I'm saying. Then you will make notes. Maybe you will go through 10 books. Then you will not do 10 books. You will go from this magazine to that magazine. You will do trial and error. Later you will realize, no, sir was saying right, sir was not saying right, this, that. And you will create a certain repository of resources. And maybe it will take you 1 chance or 2 chance to clear the examination. And you will become an IAS officer. Okay. Now your brother or sister is going to pick up the same resources which you developed through trial and error and clear the exam in one chance. So what does your brother and sister have? What does your brother and sister have? It's called a latecomer advantage. It's called a latecomer advantage. When you come after someone, you should not, if you are smart, you should not do the same mistakes, because some of you believe that jab tak once I will fall into the well, then I will learn. I am saying that there's a well in front of you, but you want to fall into it and then well to tha, kuan tha. That's a separate issue. There are two types of students that ways. One student is when the teacher says there is a well, don't fall, they will listen to the teacher. They will say, yes, sir said there's a well. But some will say, nahi, aisa kya hai that he is not allowing us to go into that direction. They will fall into that trap and then come back and say, ha, tha to. So the point is, if a smart student will always learn from someone else's mistakes. So in that sense, what we call as latecomer advantage is what Germany and France had. Germany and France did not need to go through cotton phase. They did not need to go through cotton phase. They automatically came to heavy industries. See, Britain did trial, error, capital, this, that, loot India, beat the Indians, this, that, plan, do everything. Then go to heavy industries. Innovate, find solutions. Britain had to go through a certain process. That is you. Your siblings are based on latecomer advantage, and that is what every other country will have after Britain. Do you understand what do you mean by latecomer advantage? What do I mean by latecomer advantage? Yes. Now, before we discuss what is their path, I've explained Britain to you. No, Shoaib, what is the issue? Latecomer advantage is when you don't need to innovate, trial and error in certain areas, and you can shift to the main phase automatically. It's called latecomer advantage. It's basically using someone else's knowledge and experience to do what you need to do without going through the process of experimentation. When you very simply skip experimentation, you automatically go to you have latecomer advantage. Okay. Now, first we have to discuss why industrial revolution did not happen. Can anybody tell me why industrial revolution did not happen in France between 1750 to 1820? Can anybody guess what it was? That is not true, Himanshu. NASA and ISRO is totally different thing. NASA never gave us the technology. We did our trial and error. Yes, very good. Very good. France, political chaos, constitution लिखने से time मिलेगा, then they will do anything. Constitution making, French Revolution, thereafter wars, instability, no political will, and the population increase was lower. Agriculture was more robust after 1815. Okay. Now, Germany, why would it not happen between 1750 to 1820? Very good. Does not exist as one entity. No unification. Limited under Zollverein needs resources and unity. So very simply, Germany does not exist only. So very simply, it does exist, but too unstable. Germany doesn't exist and needs to exist once to become industrial power in that regard. Now, let's talk about the French. Let's talk about the French. When we talk about the French, their uniqueness first obviously is latecomer advantage. Everything I will read out of the PPT also, don't worry. Let me just discuss it with you first. Spain is of no purpose to me. Portugal I really don't care about. Whatever countries UPSC cares about, I care about. Okay. So latecomer advantage, obviously they have. But see, these French were a little bit different also. When it came to their agricultural sector after 1800, 1815, after Bourbon Restoration, their agriculture was a little bit more robust in the way that once they were out of the economic crisis, they really did manufacturing in the side. So their farmers were manufacturers, artisans, and farmers both at one point. So the population increase, while in Britain was double, France it wasn't double. And it slowed down after a process. As it is, people were getting killed at a quicker rate. And therefore the demand for food was not that big. And more than that, the French are a little bit, if you want to call it like that, lazy. Which is that they said, why go to the city? Who wants to work? If I will go to the city, I will work as a barkeeper. I will work as domestic help. ये मुश्किल काम नहीं होता. I will not go into this textile industry, work 15, 20 hours. No. This is not I'm going to work. I will work. I will go. I will be domestic servant. I will be barkeeper. I will sweep. I will do anything, but I will not do this heavy industries work. So the people also did not have that type of aptitude, which is that they want to go and hustle in the city. But if the people don't have inclination, for industrialization, then how do you get the technology? How do you get the technology? How do you get the technology? Very good. They said contention. They smuggled all the technology from Britain. The state played a very important role in smuggling technology and skilled workers from Britain. So what they did was that they bribed everybody. They literally bribed everyone that you come and settle in France, we will give you good wine. You come here, you bring your machines also. So they basically brought in everything from the British. More than that, never overtook the British. That we already know. They were never able to overtake the British. They were always just matching the British or lower than that. They never bothered to overtake the British itself. But the most important, state-based subsidies, infrastructure development, and state-sponsored industrialization was there. Basically, if nobody really bothers, the state said, okay, we'll make the roads, we'll make the railways, we'll make the canals, we will bring the technology, you just work on it. So basically, the French experience was very state sponsored like. While in Britain it was based on market deciding everything, the state did everything after 1815 to industrialize France itself. So latecomer advantage, state played an important role in smuggling technology, never overtook the British, and state-based industrial revolution. Anybody has any issue in these 4 points? No? Okay. Now we go to Germany. Now, Germany is the last point I will make. I'll read out everything tomorrow, so just pay attention. Pay attention. Germany. First is latecomer advantage. But their real industrial revolution happened after unification, and that basically includes under Bismarck. Bismarck was the reason. Now, when we talk about state intervention, whilst the French had the most, the Germans had less than French but more than Britain. Basically, the simple straightforward point is the Germans did play a part. The German state did intervene, but it was less than the French, more than the British. So here again, technology, smuggling, and what we call as state intervention was there. Now, whilst this may be true, the Germans, after smuggling, improved the British technology and overtook the British as the industrial power of the world. If you remember something, I told you that the British are going to basically cry about the unification of Germany, or that it will be a miscalculation on the part of the British to allow the unification of Germany under Bismarck. Did I say this point when I was discussing the unification of Germany? Yes. This is the reason why. Because the Germans are going to take the same technology and improve it, and within 20 years they will overtake the British and become the foremost industrial power. So basically, the British are going to regret or become jealous of the Germans very quickly. So this will basically make the British will become jealous of German power and industrial growth. Now, does it make sense? And in a way, I have also sown the seed of the First World War. In a way, I have also sown the seed of the First World War, because the First World War was basically a moment in which the British took out their jealousy on the Germans. So remember this point, this third point, remember it, because this will come back to haunt you or will tell you later also. Germans means Germany unified. No Prussia exists now. There's only Germany after 1871. So very simply, Pooja, Zollverein can allow little bit of industrial development because custom union allows development to happen. Now, very simply, you should not have sympathy with Hitler. Hitler is Second World War, not First World War. So, Sachin, before you take sympathy in Hitler, Hitler is Second World War. He was totally responsible for the Second World War. Okay. Now, fourth and fifth point, and we then break for today. Fourth point is that the Germans concentrated on specific sectors. Which is that thing for which the Germans are known for? Yes, automobile. The first car company, which is Benz, is developed. So you would have seen Bharat Benz, Mercedes Benz. That name Benz is basically, Benz was the first automobile manufacturer in the world itself. And the last and the most important point is, there was a unique nexus between banks and industrialists. Till today it is there that the banks were very ready to give credit to the industrialists, and all the savings of the people was pushed into the German, what we call as industrialist sector or industrial sector itself. It was a very standard thing which happened in that regard. So before I consolidate by reading the PPT out to you, only the British part, not the German and French part, we started with 4 questions. What is industrial revolution? Why Britain? Why not Asia and India or China? And what is the French and German experience? Are these 4 points clear? Because if it is clear, then tomorrow we discuss American and Japanese, and the most important discussion, which is social impact of industrial revolution. And then we move towards the Eastern question tomorrow, which is based on the First World War. Very, very important discussion. So are we clear with regards to whatever we've done till this point today? Nexus means relationship between bank and industrialists. Bank takes the people money and they push it into industrialists. They were very, very quick to push money into the industrial sector in that regard. Okay. At what time German means Holy Roman Empire? Holy Roman Empire means before 1806. Shoaib, don't go back, go forward in the story. Okay. Aditya, you don't just have to go through the recordings. They would be available to you if you have missed previous classes. Okay. Let's do one thing. Let's try to understand the British experience and then we'll end the story today. So, general causes for the Industrial Revolution. If somebody asks you, we know that what changed in Europe. See, previously there was an agrarian sector. I'm just consolidating. Will take your 3 to 4 minutes. There was an agrarian sector, but after 1750, something changed. So generally throughout Europe, there was a population explosion. 43% more or less in certain areas in Britain, doubling of population. Thereafter, new agricultural methods and techniques were developed, which allowed for the industrial revolution to happen because labor demand would fall, and therefore it will allow for surplus population to go to the industries. They also had remarkable technological changes in the transportation sector and the industrial sector. More than that, their access to colonies will also be a game changer. And raw materials such as coal was available very readily across Europe, which is a very important resource at this point of time. Now, the question why Britain can be answered by the fact that agricultural revolution will increase population or increase production, better labor productivity, and raw material for industries will be produced because of the seed drill and Rotherham plow. And the reason was the enclosure movement, wherein public land will be enclosed by upper strata, popular expansion, but agriculture cannot absorb it. The inventions such as the horse-drawn seed drill, which will add to the Rotherham plow, will make agriculture better, which we already understand will reduce labor demand. And the other things were also interesting. Firstly, that Britain had a very long coastline, very good navigable river, which means that it has a very good strategic position when it comes to geography. It also has a constitutional monarchy, very politically stable, which is not true for France in that regard. It is also an Anglican nation, which is a Protestant nation, where therefore it was very open for labor to also migrate from other countries. Colonial market in India would be a very important catalyst, and a very good commercial banking sector was also important. So whilst the initial demand came from the internal population, colonies allowed a very important big exponential rise in demand, which will feed the industries and therefore lead to industrial revolution. Now, there were also other inventions which happened in the textile sector, which allowed for the textile sector to industrialize first also, which is that you don't have to do not learn this, do not learn. The fact is that there will be a series of changes. Anglican means English Protestants are called Anglicans. So there will be a series of inventions in the textile sector which will change the textile sector altogether. First will be the flying shuttle, which will basically make the loom for which you needed 3 labor, 1 labor was needed. Then you will have what we'll call the spinning jenny. Spinning jenny allows spindles, which is that you have seen sui dhaga. Dhaga comes in spindles. That spindle can be made very quickly. Then came the water loom. So when you make any form of cloth, the threads tend to get tangled. So if you add a little bit of moisture, they don't get tangled. That is called the what we call as water loom or water frame. But the two biggest inventions in the textile sector were, you don't have to learn this, which is basically the spinning mule, wherein mechanical action comes through. And till today, we use this, which is called the power loom. The power loom, which was developed in 1787, till today, all textiles are made in the power loom itself. Power loom is using electricity. There is no need for human action itself. Thereafter came two very important developments also, the sewing machine, so that everybody could weave better, and also what is called the cotton gin. Cotton has a small ball, which is its seed, and this could mechanically remove the seeds very quickly. Now, this meant that basically the process which I told you in the beginning, I've also written it down for you in this format. So it talks about the enclosure movement, how it consolidated land. It talks about how agriculture productivity increased, so labor demand went down. It talks about Britain's unique position because there was no guilds in Britain, where basically there were no what we call as artisan or merchant associations. So nobody could resist change and nobody could resist new technological developments in Britain. So basically Britain, new technologies were very quickly adopted also, which may not be true for Germany and France. Same way, there were multiple colonies which gave them a lot of capital. Then the British government had favorable policy towards the industrialists also, and that added to its geographical location meant that you basically get the recipe for industrial revolution. You write all of these points together and you will get a 250 word answer, so don't worry about that. The first phase of cotton revolution was the fact that they were able to specialize, or what we call as they were able to industrialize in cotton first, because cotton is easy, everybody was ready to adopt it, very big demand in the Asian markets, and basically there are no guilds, so nobody can change or resist that change also. Thereafter, once they met through the cotton phase, they went into the what we call as heavy industries phase. And it is only after 1800, 1860 that they were producing a lot of iron. With iron came machine building and coal mining. And therefore, by 1870, they were actually mining 110 million tons of coal, which is quite a lot. So therefore, the British story was cotton and then heavy industries. This data doesn't really matter to you. What you have to remember is what I told you in the beginning. Tomorrow, when we come back, we talk about second phase. I will repeat the French and German story, and then we'll go to the US and the Japanese. Clear? 3 minutes I've taken from you that I will repay later in that regard. Is all of this clear? Now, does this make sense? The fourth module is technical. It is the Industrial Revolution. Tomorrow we'll have 2-3 very interesting discussions also about industrial time, the social impact, and how Industrial Revolution changed everything forever. Yes? Done, everyone? Come on. Okay, perfect. So I will see you tomorrow, same time, and we'll take the story forward. If you don't have a question, you can leave the session. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye. See you same time tomorrow.